Tēnā mihi mahana kia koutou. So I'm Shenagh Gleisner from IPANZ. Good to see you. And I'm delighted to have with me today Jane Kennelly. She's the Group Manager Wellbeing at the Skills Consulting Group. And you've commissioned a very interesting research project along with the research agency TRA, I think, which is the Wellbeing Workplace Index, something like that. So Jane, how did you go about it?
Kia ora. Kia ora. Listen, we certainly have been watching some of the macro trends that have been happening globally. And one of those, of course, as a result of last year, was this whole notion of well-being and what well-being means inside organisations. And it would be fair to say that if there was an arms race once upon a time to providing benefits at work, the arms race has now shifted and it's all about providing environments that are all about well-being. So with that in mind, we decided to undertake research to provide the first ever study of its kind about well-being and what it means to workplaces. And also what we were really trying to look for was the gap between perceptions with employees and employers. So as you mentioned, we went right with a well-known research agency called TRA, and we spoke to 1,500 people across the country who were over 18. We spoke to 104 HR managers, and they represented 11 industries across the country. And the whole premise is that, one, we wanted to put a stake in the ground this year and say, right, this is, and I'm going to ask you, or maybe I won't, Shenagh, what you think our score was out of 100. But anyway, we'll do the big reveal shortly. But one, put a stake in the ground. Two, commit to actually revisiting this on an annual basis so we can see how we're growing and improving as a country and as communities and companies. And then calculating that so that we can actually kind of pat ourselves on the back when we're doing a really good job.
Well, it sounds very interesting. Now, I have read it, Jane, so I do know the number, but I did notice, that the point that genuine care in the workplace is the big driver. So how would you define genuine care?
Right, now you're actually bang on there. Actually, there were, what we looked at was actually 6 key areas around this whole notion of genuine care. So, and it was from the individual's perception. So it was, does my company care for me? Does my manager genuinely care for me? Am I allowed to care for myself, for my well-being at work? Are the people around me enabled to actually genuinely care for me and also themselves? And so the 6 key drivers came out really strongly as far as what we were assessing. And this whole notion of genuine care has actually matured somewhat over the last period of time. And it appears to quite strongly have morphed from the time when organisations were providing boxes of fruit and yoga and Fitbits, which are all very good. But what we were seeing really clearly is that employees are now looking for genuine care. And that's what COVID's done. It has shifted our mindsets into that whole notion of, well, look, these things are all lovely, you know, the benefits that have previously been on offer, but does my organisation genuinely care for me? And do they show that in a way that's not just tick boxing? And that's where the stake in the ground, this first cab off the rank, has shown quite clearly that we've got some room for improvement there. I can give you the big reveal now. So at the moment, New Zealand scores 62 out of 100 in the way that we provide genuine care for our, perception-wise, the way we provide genuine care for our employees. So one, I think it's actually, it's a good figure, but two, it really shows that there is significant room for improvement across our workforces.
Yes, that's interesting. Tell me a few discrepancies you said earlier between how employers see how well they're doing and how employees perceive it. Just give me a little picture of where the major discrepancies are.
Okay, now I'll give you a couple of high notes here. So 2 areas that we actually looked at. One was HR managers and employees, and one was managers versus employees. Now, the interesting thing is that as far as HR managers were concerned, they felt that we were scoring around 79% as far as wellbeing in those organisations are concerned. But when we talked to the employees of those organisations, they would suggest that it was actually 62%. So there is a disconnect there. And actually, again, from a positive psychology note, there's actually a wonderful area for HR managers to focus on right now to actually build high performance workforces. And the second one was around managers versus employees. Now, a supportive manager is considered to be to rate at 70%, but in fact, employees were seeing that managers were coming in at 52% as being supportive around wellbeing. And I will just take a little sidestep here for a moment. Having been involved in the people environment for many, many years, the poor old manager has actually been very undernourished and underlooked after, if there's such a phrase, for many years. And it's finally now coming home to roost. What we're seeing is that these individuals absolutely need to also be well supported under genuine care and wellbeing in their environment. So they need the tools and the skills and the advice and the support to actually be able to pass on that genuine care to others.
Yeah, interesting. So that's a real area for effort from a number of people for all to be looked after. Great. Now I'm really interested in the well-being links with effectiveness and productivity. Does it actually make work more productive?
Yes, it does. Actually, I was just on the manager one though, just to go back ever so gently. One of the organisations that we're working with at the moment has recognised this, and they have put in a program that's a little bit like an EAP service, an employee assistance program, but it's a manager assistance program. So they have recognised that the more genuine care they can show to that group of people, the better. So all hail that organisation.
I really like to hear that, because I often feel in the public sector that it's the middle managers delivering to the top, pulled from the bottom, are the ones that need the most care and attention.
They do. A lot of it. They absolutely do.
Productivity then.
Yes. Okay. So, a fantastic question, because why are we interested in all of this? Because there is an absolute link between productivity and well-being. So the more organisations care about their workforces, the more they show genuine care, the more they think about when people turn up each day, come through those revolving, doors or out the lift, that they've actually got a choice to be there. That's the first thing. So in order to create environments where people feel pretty happy and cared for and satisfied will mean that we are building highly productive workforces and businesses will succeed. And if you think about yourself turning up to work each day, knowing you're walking into an environment that actually genuinely does want you to do a great job, they'll look at your job design, they will train you on resilience, they'll help you with sleep and fatigue management, they will help you help your own families. What a wonderful way to actually then put more and more effort in to actually create a great, profitable, successful workplace.
No, that makes sense. Now, I did notice that the research said there was a particular concern for non-office workers.
Good point, actually. So as far as the perception of wellbeing between office and non-office, people involved with office-based work feel that their wellbeing is rating at 65% in the work environments they're in. However, non-office, their rating was at 59%. 52%. No, 59%.
59, yeah, anyway, now, a gap.
There's a gap. But I can give you an example, though, of an organisation that is doing a great job there. So this is a firm that has truck drivers right across the country, and they have recognised that sleep, fatigue, impacting family life, making people feel more looked after at work will actually have a knock-on effect. Now, you could go, well, how can a truck driver improve truck driving? What's the well-being kind of question there that's being answered? But in actual fact, what it is, it's about improving absenteeism, reducing sick days, people sleeping better so that there are less accidents on the road, which lead to critical incidents. Looking after each other and I've got your back, mate, type stuff. And so the penny has dropped loudly, and they have launched a significant program for what they would call their sort of dirty and dangerous workforce, because it's tough work and all, again, top marks. So it's not all doom and gloom. There are some organisations out there doing extraordinary things for their people. And the reason is because there is a real gap around genuine care and what it looks like in those environments.
My last question, I'm so glad you obviously did a special look at Māori and Pacific in your workforce. Just give me one or two key messages there.
Yeah, look, how can we not? That cultural lens is so vital. And look, key point number one, and we come back to those managers, Shenagh. Managers are seen as one of the most important factors in wellbeing programs at work. So if we're not enabling our managers, we could be really disengaging our Māori and Pacifica. So that's one thing. And the second thing is that they do have specific needs, and they do differ from the rest of New Zealand. And their expectations of wellbeing are not being adequately met at the moment. So genuine care is actually, it's a factor about how we enable their managers, but we also clearly can see that being taken into the home environment. And what an extraordinary way to impact communities and whānau if we're doing a really great job at work.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I do have to say that I did notice that of all the industries you looked at, government did quite well, Jane, I think. Not that it can't improve. There's obviously room for improvement, but it did come out quite well. Most of my audience works for the government or public sector. Yep.
Oh, no, and good on them too. Yes, government came out at 68 out of 100. Which is a really positive score. It's not to say more things can't be done, but I was in a very large government entity recently and talking to the head of wellbeing, and I was so encouraged to hear the initiatives that were being put in place. And the reason why it was encouraging, because one, there was absolute dedication from the top down, and I think that's important to note. All the boardrooms across the globe are talking this topic at the moment. And the second thing, that there was an absolute focus on the wellbeing in that organisation with people in the right positions to do this. And thirdly, that they were building programs that were fit for purpose. So it wasn't just any old thing, but they had really gone to great lengths to understand their workforce and build and curate a range of projects that showed genuine care. So again, it was really encouraging to see. It's not hard. This is just, if I was going to say to you members what you need to do, you just need to take a moment to pause, take stock, have a think, talk, happily talk to anyone in your community about, in your network, about what this might look like and how they could make some steps to join the dots. But key note, it's not a passing fad. This is actually something that's here to stay, and with good reason. And isn't it wonderful that we've arrived at this place now? We're gone as the industrial age. We are in the knowledge world, and how wonderful to be able to show that first step for New Zealand businesses.
Well, Jane, thank you very much. There's actually some good news in there, but the really interesting thing is that it's easy to keep making improvements, and it matters very much. So I'd like to thank you very much for joining me.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Have a good weekend. Bye.